Well, hey, welcome back to Breaking Kayfabe. It's your boy Saucy, and I'm here today with the handler of Kasey, Kash. This is somebody that I've just met online in the Twitterverse. Kasey, how you doing? And what's going on?
I'm doing all right, mate. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I woke up 20 minutes ago when you messaged me asking if I was ready to record.
Yeah. So we've
So
been
we're doing
trying.
good.
Yeah, we've been trying to get together to film for a little while now. And truth be told, this is the final episode in the first season of Breaking Kayfabe. So this is episode number 25. I don't know if that's a big deal or if this might be the end of it all, but I was happy to get you on the show. And I want to get to know more about the character because what I know you for is your Twitter interactions. Tell us what we need to know about Kasey Cash.
Um, all right. Well, Casey's a character that's been around for a bit longer than people think, really. Like I only have him on this Twitter account since like 2020, but he was around for a little bit before that in like oh God, 2017, 2018. But then that account got suspended and I just like went back to doing just straight on the boards and stuff. And I took a little bit of a break, now he's back, but he's been around for a while, like a little bit longer than people sort of realize.
So,
Um
what is he up
oh
to
sorry.
now? What's the? I mean, are you working in feds? Are you just kind of floating out there? Where's he at?
Casey at the moment, I like to say he's retired, but he's not really retired.
Okay.
Because he had a match in Zion against Razzles Mars for the undisputed title at their last big show before they took their little break before they started up this next season. And he lost his title. And that match, he after the match, he sort of said on Twitter that he was gonna take some time off to recuperate from some injuries. Because when he won the title, he sort of decided he was going to defend it against anyone and everyone for as long as he can. And when that happened, he sort of started accumulating more injuries than he was sort of used to. So he now likes to say on Twitter that he's retired, but no one really retires in efeding. So
So he's not sleeping. He's just waiting. Is what you're saying?
yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just waiting around, waiting for the time to pop his head back into the place and go. Yeah, make sure people don't forget about him. You know, just
Yep.
just trying to make. He's not making them forget about him. He's just making them not remember that he's around, sort of thing.
So
So you can get the.
when he's fully recovered and his body is repaired, right? Do you see him going back into Zion, making another run for that title, or is he going to freelance and work in some other places? Um, I'm
Um.
I'm always curious what free agents do when they are prospecting their next Fed.
There's been talks with a couple of fed heads about him potentially going there when he comes back. Like of course, I'd like to see him go back to places that he was in before, like Slaughterhouse and Zion for a couple of them. 'Cause Zion's ran by a really sick dude, and I'd love that fed. Same with Slaughterhouse. They're two really sick feds, and I'd love to see Casey go back there if they got a place for him on the roster. If not, he'll probably just float around, see what, not really settle down in any place, just keep going and keep working wherever he can, that type of thing. There was a couple people that actually like messaged me when I put out the post saying like, "Oh, are you done for good?" And I was, "Nah, not done for good. Just sort of taking a rest on this character." He was supposed to take a rest in January actually, but then he won the Zion title, so I couldn't really give him his break.
Isn't that's the way that pro wrestling goes, though, right? Is
Oh yeah, absolutely.
somebody's about to go on vacation or leave for paternity leave or whatever, and then you got another guy that goes down with an injury or gets fired or just goes off the handle, and then all of a sudden you got to step up and save the company or save the belt or whatever. Uh, it it's art imitating life, imitating art, you know, or however you want to put
Exactly,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was supposed to take time off because his wife actually they had their first son, and then she was going to come back, and then he was going to take a break and look after the kid, and then yeah, he just won the belt, so he couldn't really take this break like they had talked about.
So what's so he's getting some well deserved time off. Are you doing some CD pieces just to kind of
I
put
Yes, I have a very good CD piece in the works. I Oh, dude, I sat and thought about this idea for a while. Like, I wanted to do it. It's like a therapy piece where he just goes to therapy because I don't know why I'm laughing. I thought this idea was funny in my head. Like, because Casey's very he doesn't like talking. Not like he doesn't like talking in general. He just doesn't like talking about what's going on inside his mind and stuff.
sure, yeah.
And like during this last run, he was sort of not acting like the Kasey that everyone else knew. So his wife has sort of told him that you need to go talk to someone. So I'm working on a piece at the moment where he's like just sitting down talking to this therapist, and like the therapist keeps trying to bring up his dad, and he keeps not wanting to talk about his dad. It's gonna be great. I promise. It's gonna be it's gonna be awesome when I finally post it. Otherwise, it's just gonna go to the ever-growing CD graveyard in my Google Docs drive.
So when you write these pieces, is are they done with like a goal, like a long term goal at the end, or are you just kind of improvising and just playing off on whatever sounds like fun at the time?
There's been a couple where I have like had long-term goals come out of it. Like I had a piece where Casey's uncle had passed away, and he had like sort of started seeing visions and stuff of his uncle and telling him what to do, and it was going to play into his eventual mental breakdown when he lost the title, but I didn't end up going with that story. And there was another one where one I actually posted where he went to the cemetery where his parents and uncle are, and he was telling them how him and his wife got into a fight, and then they got married in the hallway outside their apartment. Because yeah, some of them have stories. Other ones are just like ideas that I think sound fun to write, and then I eventually run out of motivation to continue writing them. But
Yep.
that's just how it works with those, isn't it? Like you have a really sick idea in your head, and then all of a sudden you run out of steam to write it when you're like 800 words in.
I think I'm a writer who's in that same boat where I'll start off strong on a storyline and then I'll see a squirrel and get distracted and then I'll want to write
Yeah.
something else. And what you end up with, is maybe a story that's got 5 or 6 chapters, but none of them make any sense when you put them together.
Exactly, exactly.
So
Oh,
every time I've made a run at a title, I get there. By the time I'm there, the story has completely changed, and usually not for the better. It's usually so far off what the original promise was, and and of course I usually don't do well in championship matches for that reason. Um, but I certainly appreciate it when other people can pull it off.
it's I love reading them when like in RP feds, but there's a reason that like I'd try and not have Kasey in like roleplay feds, and I just prefer to stick to angled with him. It's because I don't think I could stick to one cohesive story for him. I feel like I just go off on a bunch of little side quests with him in
Yeah.
role plays, and I'd sort of like get distracted from what his main goal would be. This, but like all the power to the people who like stick out with roleplay feds for years and years. I tried with a couple of characters, but I found that I'd not really made for that. Like I can do it like every once in a while, but not like I could not do it consistently like some people do, where it's like once a week they're busting out like these 2,000 word role plays. I just can't do it. Like it took me 3 months to get to 800 words on this therapy piece. Like I
And
sit down to start writing, and it's just like I get distracted doing other stuff. I need to clear my desk of all like knickknacks so I don't get distracted when I write.
yeah. Um, it's easy to burn out when you're writing a serious story and you're trying to stay on topic, and you're trying to progress through this meta story. Um, I don't. Me personally, as a reader and as a writer, I prefer the variety show aspect of wrestling, right? Where you can watch a show and you don't really need to know what the buildup was before the show. You just go like, oh, this guy is a barber, so he's going to do a a barbershop thing, and this guy is a preacher, and he's going to do a preacher thing, and each part of the show is like is a gimmick, And for
Dude,
me,
that
I love
that
that
reminds me
80s
of a
style of
character I
show.
used to have.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I love the variety stuff. Yeah, that the preacher shit actually reminded me of a character I used to have that was basically just Joseph Seed from Far Cry 5.
Okay.
And I'd like write little church sermons for these fucking role plays. And I based it off like I based it heavily off of what he was doing with Far Cry 5, where it would be like the seven seals and all that. Like the first one would be the first seal, second seal, and so on and so
Uh huh.
forth. And it got progressively more chaotic towards the end, which is what I was aiming
Naturally.
for.
Yep.
And the seventh seal ended with his brother actually turning on the church and burning the church down.
Perfect.
And it was going to lead to a second book, but then the Fed closed. So I couldn't. Then I just lost all motivation to continue the story because the
Yeah.
Fed that I was running it closed down.
I mean, what you've got there is a great vehicle to tell a story in chapters, right? So you've got the seven, you say the seven seals or the seven.
Yeah. It was a thing from the Bible, I think it was.
Yes. So you've already predetermined this is a 7-part story, and when it's done, it's over, which makes it a little bit easier as a writer because there's an end. There's light at the end of the tunnel. You can push yourself through 7 pieces. But if you're telling
Yeah.
this infinite story where you're just a preacher forever, then that can wear you out. You can lose interest in it, and it has to get more and more crazy just to keep your interest, let alone the
Mm.
interest of everybody else.
Yeah, I had like a storyboard planned out where it was like if I win or lost, it'd go in these directions, and from that, if I win or lost, it went in those directions, and it was just like all these different branches. This is when I was like really motivated to be in like the role play side of it. So I had all these ideas written down of like, all right, if I win this match, it's gonna go this way, and he's gonna talk about this. But if he loses, and it's the beginning of the start of his. You can start to see the cracks in the foundation of the family, and it was always going to end in the same way, where the brother was going to turn on the church, see how messed up his brother had become, and then he was going to burn down the church for the sake of all the people that were sort of brainwashed by him.
So
It was such a sick idea, but and then I was going to have the second book, and then the Fed closed.
uh, it sounds like that was fun. That had to be one of your more fun characters to write.
Oh, absolutely. I miss him every day, but I'm not going to bring him back. It's just too much to sit and write like those huge
Mm-hmm.
pieces for him. I feel like where I left it off was a good place to leave him, you know?
Oh yeah, no, that's super satisfying, right? You put a bow on it, and you walked away and said, "There it is." You know, love it or hate it, but you know, it's done. Um,
Exactly.
so with Kasey, um, his personality. Do you think that he's a lot like you, or where do you get the inspiration for this character?
I made him too much like me. I feel like you know
Okay,
how like some people say their characters are sort of like a representation of themselves.
yeah, of course.
I made Casey too much like me. I feel like he was too much like me at the start because I pretty much just based him off of me. Like he's from where I live. He had like a similar backstory with his parent, except for me, it was my grandparent who I lived with, and it just yeah everything else. I've sort of tried to spin it so it's not as much like me in recent years. But at the start of Casey's like journey here, it was very much based off of me, and I found myself as weird as it sounds, I found myself emulating like Casey's characteristics in real life.
You're living the gimmick. I gotcha.
I was living the gimmick, and I was like, this is too weird. Like I can't be doing this.
Right.
So I yeah, and like when I brought him back the second time, I like spun it, but it was already like he had the same place of birth and like the only things really is the only things that he still has that's related to me is the place of birth and the backstory of his dad. But his dad was, in my case, my grandfather. Yeah, so that's I draw a lot of inspiration for him through like my personal experiences or um another one I find helps with him is like old like indie movies
Okay.
or like old Australian movies because it's as weird as this might sound, it's kind of difficult to write in Australian. But like I find a way to like when I tweet as Casey like for selling stuff for feds, I just sort of tweet it if I was tweeting for it.
Right. Yeah.
But like for actually sitting down and writing, like sure I take some inspiration from me, but I also take a lot of inspiration from like Australian media. Like some of his moves are named after what's the Wolf Creek, if you know what that movie is.
I don't. Is it a good one? Do you recommend it?
Oh, highly.
Okay.
It's it's a horror movie if you're into that sort of stuff. It's an Australian horror film where it's like sort of based off of Ivan Milat, if you know who that is. He was a serial killer in Australia who murdered backpackers. So I sort of like there was a thing in the movie where he was like, "You're just a head on a stick," and he like
Okay.
and he just like, yeah, he just called someone a head on a stick, and I was like, "That sounds fucking sick for a move name," so I gave it to him for one of his
Oh, there
moves.
you go. So is he? I mean, he's not a. You said he's like you, right? So your
Yeah,
personality. I mean, you seem like you have a good sense of humor. You know, you seem like you're a fun guy, right? So is
thank
that
you. I
Casey?
appreciate that.
Is that what he's like? Is that his vibe?
To to his friends, it is. But like, there's a reason that people call him an asshole.
Uh huh.
Like to the people that he like isn't friends with or doesn't like, he can come across a bit like it's harsh and not as welcoming to him. But once you know him, like if he will protect you until he's like 6 feet in the ground if he's like got that connection with you. Like he'll go to war for people that he cares about. But like for those that he doesn't, it's sort of you're a bit stuck there.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that case, I wouldn't say he's like me in that regard, but like when it comes to people he's close with, he's more like me.
It's tough, and this is one of the complaints I have about Twitter is that I mean your Twitter game is very really strong, right? But
Thank you.
it's hard to deliver voice and tone in a Twitter message or in a text message, where
Yeah.
as you intend it to for it to be light and to be joking. Other people may take it as it being abrasive, um, and it's it's really easy to get those two things confused. Um,
Mm.
so a character like this, who doesn't take things too seriously, jokes a lot, pokes fun. It seems like nothing is off limits. Uh, that
Oh no, absolutely not.
in per- yeah, I mean in person, like that's hilarious. That person's a lot of fun in person, because you don't really have to worry about who else is watching. But
Yeah.
in a safe space like Twitter, I think people are a little bit more careful about the interactions, or they might, you know, either be offended or they're pretending to be offended by it. So it's I'm sure you've had your share of Twitter drama over comments, and some of them probably deserved, and some of them probably not deserved.
I haven't really had like any big Twitter beefs in a while, but
Yeah,
I have had a couple in the past, but they were on other accounts. Well, like Kasey, he's had one. There was one really big one, but besides that, there was nothing really. I've actually been quite fortunate to not get into too much drama with Kasey, like out of character.
yeah.
I have had my fair share of run-ins with like collectively with all of my characters, but Kasey, thankfully, like I've only ever had like the couple really big run-ins,
So
which is good. Like I'm not on here for drama. I'm on here because it's an escape from the real world and how sucky it can be at times. So
yeah, I mean it is a bit of a trap, right? You've got strong personalities who are good storytellers, and they are competing with each other to bury each other, right? So
yeah,
you're rewarded for that skill set. Like the better you are at make at treating people like they're worthless, the more rewarded you are. It's kind of a terrible thing when you think about it, but
it's a slippery slope once you get involved in it, but like, it's pretty cool otherwise.
right. Somebody was telling me the other day that and this is an e-fetter that was in one of the discords, was he said his boss came up to him and was giving him shit at work about something, and he said, well, he said the wrong thing to me. That guy doesn't know that I write promos for fun on the weekends. So he said he just ripped into this guy, and he wrote this strongly worded 2,000 word promo and sent it to that guy's boss and just eviscerated the guy with words. And I think everybody collectively cheered. Everybody in the community was like, yeah, finally these life skills are gonna do somebody some good.
My
uh,
e-fetting skills are gonna do some good in the
that's
world.
right. That's right. Like we're gonna show them. Check out this fire promo. I'm gonna cut on Steve in accounting.
Yeah, fuck you, Steve. I'm gonna write a 2,000 word promo about how you suck.
All right. So we've gone off the rails here, which is okay.
Just a
Uh,
little bit.
yeah. Um, but before we go, let's talk about who are some of your favorite people in e-fetting.
Oh, dude, how much time have you got?
We've got about 5 minutes. So
All right. I'll stick to a couple then. So we got Kai Morgan, the handler for Kai Morgan. He's been one of my best friends since we sort of like linked up in NFW. And I know you talked to Tommy. Tommy is he's so sick. He's been a Fed head that was so like accustoming to me and like helping me with everything, and he really helped Kasey get to where he is today. Like I gave him ideas for stories for Kasey that involved like major gimmick changes and these huge elaborate match types, and he was just, yep, go for it, run wild, man. And it was so liberating to have a Fed head that was that accustoming, and like the same goes for Kai because he runs Zion, and he's just been so accustoming to Kasey. I gave him ideas for gimmicks, and he was like, "Dude, that sounds sick. Do your thing with it." Another shout out's got to go to Terranova, like the Fed head for Slaughterhouse. She's just, yeah, again, another Fed head that I cannot sing her praises enough for how welcoming and accustoming she's been to me. Because I was there with another one of my characters in the first incarnation of it, and then when she brought it back, she asked if I wanted Kasey there, and I said absolutely. Like I cannot sing the praises of those three enough. They're some of the people that I hold closest in efetting as my personal friends, and another shout out's got to go to, who else could I shout out? It's got to go to like everyone who's on my Fed roster, XIX. They're just giving me reasons to keep going with that Fed, and it's just, yeah, it's too good, man. I wouldn't, as sucky as this hobby can get at times, they make it all worth it, and the people that you build the relationships with, they're the people that kept me going, and I just want to, thank you to all of them. They're just, some of the best, and I would not change the interactions I've had with them for the world.
I keep hearing the same names come up over and over again in these interviews that I do. NFW, XIX, um, Tommy over there at NFW.
Yeah, like
And
there's a reason for it, man. They're Tommy, Kai, Tara, they're all like some of the best people, and I'm very fortunate to be able to call them my friends, you know?
it's such a different atmosphere in an angle fed, or in this case, it sounds like it's maybe three or four angle feds that have some crossover. Everybody just seems to just love each other so much, and they seem to really appreciate each other. And the vibe is completely different in a competitive RP fed. It's
Dude, I've spent my time in competitive roleplay feds. I not the best of times we had in competitive roleplay feds. That's why I switched to angle with the majority of my
right.
characters.
I mean, it's something that can be done, right? It's possible. I do
Hmm.
hear stories of feds where everything's been done right, but more often than not, somebody's going to lose a big one that they wanted to win, and then it kind of blows up. That
Yeah, like you see the Twitter threads of like how feds go out of their way to quote bury them after a big loss,
yeah.
and it just makes you. It makes me like realize that maybe I don't miss doing competitive roleplay because I just don't miss the drama that comes along with it most of the time.
Sure, sure.
Not all the time, because like you said, there are the cases where they do seem to run cohesively as a unit, but like the odd cases you do get where it's like, the handler has a big blow up after a loss, and you see the Twitter arguments going, and it sort of makes me realize how fortunate I am that angled fetting. Sure, you do get that, but it's not like the general vibe of most feds are pretty good.
That seems to be the case. I think when competition gets involved, like there has to be some separation. It's like we're
Mm.
gonna fight and we're gonna hug it out, and then we're not gonna fight for a while. But when you go, we're gonna fight, and then I'll see you again in 2 weeks, and we're gonna fight again, and we're just gonna keep fighting, and I'm gonna keep kicking your ass, and it's there's it just has a way of just kind of wearing you out, Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so I know that's not what I brought you on the show to talk about today, but I appreciate you humoring me here. Um,
Dude,
I,
absolutely.
I like what you're doing with Kasey, and even though you're not active right now, you're still very active in the community, which I think is great. Uh, the future of e-fedding is with people who are kind of commingling in different groups in different feds at the same time, and just kind of interacting with other people that you may not know. And I appreciate you coming on the show. I don't think that we've ever worked together on any projects, but
I don't
uh,
think we have either. I think this is the first time that we've really talked.
yeah. So you shown some interest, and I would love to have anybody on the show who's just passionate about what they're doing. So, um, unless do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up for today?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Do I have anything good? Oh, if you're wondering about Kasey and what he's going to be doing next, I'd say keep an eye out on his feed for in the next like month or so, 'cause that's when shit's really going to get interesting.
Well, there you have it. We will. We'll keep an eye on Kasey. Sounds like a lot of big things happening towards the end of the summer here. So, well, I hope that Kasey continues to be on the mend. Make sure that he gets that physical therapy that he needs, and make sure that he gets the
The mental
psychological
therapy
therapy.
too.
That's right. So all the therapy he needs to get back to 100%. And I think this is where we call it. So, on behalf of the handler of Kasey Kash and from Breaking Kayfabe and This Is Awesome Promotions, I've been Saucy. This has been Breaking Kayfabe. Continue being excellent to each other, and everybody be a friend. Don't be afraid to stop by. Check out some of the other episodes in the first season of Breaking Kayfabe. We'll be back for season 2 after we go into the off season for a little bit here, and there's still plenty of other content out there to check out. So, thanks for coming by, and we'll see you all again down the road.